Hey guys, Jason here, and welcome to List Battle, the segment where we pick a subjective Duel Masters topic, make some lists about it, and have a spirited discussion. Today's topic is top 5 comeback cards. Joining me today is my partner in crime, Andrew, but we are also graced by our special guest, Kelvin, longtime friend and supporter of the Gauntlet, the first winner of Duel Masters Jeopardy, which earned him this honor, and also the very first guest on our podcast. A lot of firsts for you, Kelvin. Welcome.
Thanks, Jason. Glad to be back.
So, why the topic top 5 comeback cards? Seems like a pretty interesting one.
I think it's a topic that sort of makes you think about in-game scenarios a bit more, rather than just like having a card and seeing, like a call out, just the effect that it does. My list personally is based off cards that I've used in my own games, so it's all drawn from like my experiences and stuff. And I think everyone sort of has different experiences with a comeback and how it occurred. So I'm hoping everyone sort of has a unique list, or lists that are drawn from their own games.
Yeah.
Yeah, well said. I agree.
Yeah, one thing before we start, I found like when I was making this list, I found myself that, there's like a certain definition of what a comeback card is. So I found that a lot of these cards that eventually I'll show you guys on my list appear to like affect multiple cards, or sometimes they can even win the game by itself.
Ooh, spooky. Okay, all right. So I guess also before we jump into it, how are we interpreting comeback card? Is it so a card that like makes you win when you're about to lose? Is that sort of what we're going with? Because that's how I interpreted it.
Yep, more or less. To have a comeback happen, you have to be behind.
All right, fair enough. Okay, so let's jump straight into the honorable mentions. Kelvin, you can go first. What are your honorable mentions? Cards that didn't make your top 5.
So the two big ones that I had, that honestly I didn't really haven't used them much, is Miraculous Rebirth and Miraculous Meltdown.
Oh man.
When I see them, they look very powerful. They look like they can easily swing a game in your favor. I personally have never actually used them though. I think I might have used Rebirth once, so I haven't really experienced, actually having a game swung because of those cards. And my other one is Twin Cannon Sky Terror.
Yeah.
So that card has personally won me a lot of games. But I don't know if it can really be defined as a comeback card. So many cards can fill that sort of role that I'm not sure if it's really, the right card to put it to the list.
Yeah,
That's fair
Twin
enough.
Cannon is quite strange because you can play it when you're ahead, and that makes you more ahead. But it's also, you can also kind of use it as a comeback mechanic as well.
Yeah.
But like you said, there's also a lot of other cards that do similar things.
Yeah.
It's pretty reasonable. Especially since, like, Kelvin, the environment that Kelvin played in was mostly when we were kids, Kelvin doesn't spend that much time, like, grinding with Andrew and Damien and I, so his perspective is actually, like, quite different, and it's also, like, much appreciated.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see your list actually. Like, I'm thinking I have some like real obvious ones that I left out. But yeah.
Okay. For my honorable mentions, I've got T-Dad, Aqua Surfer, Burst Shot, and Mana Nexus. So with the exception of Mana Nexus, these cards strike me as kind of like game deciding cards, more so than comeback cards, even though I can see them helping with comebacks as well. But again, that's just like how I interpreted the topic, and that's also why they're not on my list. Andrew?
Yeah, so I came up with like sets of honorable mentions because I feel like they do similar things. So for example, my first set I had Burst Shot / Blizzard of Spears. They're, just big board wipes. You need to get rid of your opponent's field to start your own comeback. I feel like that's the first step of every comeback, is to control your opponent's field. I also had Bombazar and Balsbage as an honorable mention. Because essentially
Why
these
wasn't it in your
cards.
top 5, Andrew? Why wasn't it in your number 1?
Well, it's like it's too. I feel like it's a bit too cheesy. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but like these cards literally they win you the game on their own. And then finally I had Holy Ore and Lost Soul. So this is another set of cards that interact with multiple cards. So either in the case of Holy Ore, multiple cards on the field, and Lost Soul is your hand. So I didn't have those because I thought some of you might have them on the list and I wanted to spice up my list a bit.
Wow, Andrew, taking a hit for the content. Okay. Okay, cool.
Okay.
So with the honorable mentions out of the way, Kelvin, why don't you start us off with your number 5 pick?
Okay, so my number 5 pick was Burst Shot. And yeah, the main reason why it's on the number 5 pick and not any higher or on the honorable mentions is I think that I've had so many games where you're playing a control deck, you're getting just absolutely destroyed, and this card just comes in and completely turns the game around for you. I've had it happen both ways, and I think it's just it's only really applicable in certain scenarios, which is why it's not higher. But when it works, yeah, it goes really far for you.
Yeah, it's also a shield trigger, right? So it's like the perfect comeback card when you break into it and you play Burst Shot.
That's a great pick. So my number 5 pick is Apocalypse Vice. I had a hard time deciding on which board clear to go with, but I ultimately went with Apocalypse Vice. I feel like other board clears had the biggest impact when they came out early, so I saw them as more of preventive measures rather than as comeback cards. But I felt like Vice would generally come out at a point in the game where the opponent would be on the verge of sealing the game. They're making that last push, and then Vice just wipes their board. So to me, Vice is the most comebacky of the board clears.
The board wipes. Yeah, no, I agree with that. That's yeah. When you think about Burst Shot, again, like Kelvin said, it's very scenario based. So if your opponent is running like 3k creatures, then it doesn't actually do anything. Okay, all right. So for my number 5, I've got Scarlett Sky Terror.
Oh,
What the? I was not expecting this.
yeah, I did not expect that.
So I feel like this card is actually really underutilized, especially for one of our decks that we've been testing. We've been running with Soul Swap, and it's actually quite good as just like a one-off. This, especially against decks that like to spam blockers, which is most control decks. You can play this card and you can finish off with one of your other creatures. So essentially, like when you feel like you're behind on the board, but once you play out Scarlett Sky Terror, you can gain back that advantage.
Ooh, Andrew, making the list spicy for the content. Let's go, Andrew.
No, I think it's deserving. Like it's another way of thinking about board wipes, right? Because you'll be behind when your opponent has so many creatures on the field, and then you can just whip out Scarlet.
Yeah, that's so interesting because usually the perspective of a comeback card is like what control uses to stabilize against aggro, but then Scarlet works the opposite way, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
All right, Kelvin, show us your number 4 pick.
Okay, so my number 4 pick was, as Andrew predicted, Holy Ore is popping in at number 4. I mean, I'm sure we all have had our experiences with this card. It just wins games by itself. And there's no way of getting around it. If you have Holy Ore as your last shield trigger, whether you put it there from an Emerald or Mana Nexus, another honorable mention. I mean, it's just if they don't have a Bomedius or something, it's going to trigger, and you always have a chance. So it's popping up at number 4 for me.
Great pick. And Holy Ore last shield, Damien. Damien.
Yeah. Also with Holy Ore, you can also hardcast this pretty good.
Yeah. So that's another thing. It can come out like, you have one creature or whatever, and you just can win you the game sometimes.
Yeah.
So my number 4 pick is Thrash Crawler. I feel like this card is a great example of a late game control card, which fits the theme of this category. Quite often, dropping a Thrash late game is enough to stifle the opponent's momentum because Thrash is a big blocker. But just as significantly, the card that Thrash retrieves from mana can be something like Baz or a board wipe, and this can also seal the opponent's fate. I've just played a lot of Control in Duel Masters and have made many a comeback with good old Thrash Crawler.
Yeah, the fact that Thrash Crawler, especially when you think about comebacks, it's generally later on in the game, so you'll be having heaps of mana anyway, and then you can stream Thrash Crawler into another Thrash Crawler into like a board wipe, and it's actually so insane.
Yeah, you can definitely pull off some sick combos with it.
Yeah. So speaking about Thrash Crawler, my number 4 pick is also Thrash Crawler. I think one other thing about Thrash Crawler is that he's also a blocker. That you shouldn't really like undersell the fact that by becoming a blocker, and also a decently sized blocker as well, you can kind of treat this as like an additional shield most of the time when you can just block one of your opponent's attacks.
You got it. You got it, buddy.
That's pretty interesting. You guys having Thrash Crawler there. I did consider it, but yeah, I never put him on the list because I guess the scenarios that I'm thinking of and when I sort of chose it is like when I have 1 turn left or 2 turns left, and I was trying to think of these big sort of explosive cards. But yeah, now I think about it, Thrash Crawler it's a really good pick. Really like it.
The beauty of the category. There's many ways to interpret it.
Yeah, well, this is exactly what's good about it, I guess. Everyone's got different opinions.
Number 3, Kelvin. Show us. Tell us.
All right. So my number 3 pick is Aquasurfer, and this card. I mean, it's just another card that I've been totally destroyed by. You break into Aquasurfer and they just win off it because. Yeah. And the thing is, it gives you a creature that you can attack with the next turn as well. So with Holy Orb, with Burst Shot, sometimes if you're the one in the lead, you can still win the next turn because they don't have an answer. But Aquasurfer, it's like can get rid of your blocker and provides them with an attacker or provides you with an attack if you use it, and yeah, it can really swing. I guess it's the most swing card if you have just one blocker and they don't have a shield or something.
Yeah, that's so true. Like Aquasurfer has stolen so many games for me in like so many different situations.
It's the bane of all aggro decks.
Yeah, it really is. I feel like it's compared to Burst Shot or Holy Orb, it might see a bit more play as well.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna run into it more often.
Based on our TCG revamped decks, that is true. I believe that is true. It's more represented than those other cards. Good shout, Kelvin.
I was also gonna say how I think I'm seeing a pattern here with Calvin's list. Just pick all the 6 mana shield triggers.
Number 1 natural snare.
Number 1 natural snare. Here we go.
I only looked at one set when I picked my list.
Oh man.
Okay, so for my number 3 pick, well, I know my last pick was a creature, but in general, I had a hard time deciding on what creatures would make the list. So I decided, why not all of them? My 3rd pick is Soul Swap. This is the quintessential pull plays out of your butt card. It can be used in so many creative ways to weasel out of sticky situations and mount a comeback. Some examples from recent memory include the Cryptic Totem Jagalzor trick for a sudden OTK, or any combination of Soul Swap and Baz and Corile to brick the opponent. And I also remember the time I was playing Wave Strikers, my opponent broke Soul Swap, and then I swapped in Killstein, and that just stopped the attacks because Killstein gives everything blocker, and then I won the game the next turn. So there are just countless possibilities. And while Soul Swap might not intuitively come across as a comeback card, I think it is, and a very good one at that.
Great pick, Jason. Some foreshadowing there. Yeah. All right. We'll leave it at that.
I feel like you copied my list, Jason. This is I swear we haven't looked at each other's lists before. Yeah, but I also have Soul Swap at number 3. Oh my gosh.
Well, Andrew, I mean, like, we basically only play DMTCG with each other, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but having in the same spot, that's pretty
Well, Andrew, I can tell you this. My number 1 is not the same as any of your number 1s.
We'll see. We'll see about
So
that.
they've already appeared. I guess they might have already appeared. Who knows?
Yeah, I think Jason took the words out of my mouth for this one. But yeah, you could just pull ones out of your ass. It's like, this shouldn't happen. Like, this is not what the game should be like.
Yeah. All right, cool. All right, so number 2, Kelvin, what is your number 2 pick?
Okay, so for my number 2 pick, I have Blizzard of Spears.
Ah, that's a good one.
So I really debated between. So the reason why Steering Wave didn't make my honorable mentions was because I wasn't sure whether to put this card or Steering Wave in, and I kind of, they kind of, to me, sort of almost the same, serve the same purpose in a comeback, except Blizzard of Spears has a little bit more power, costs a little bit more, and I feel like from what I've seen of your recent videos, it sees a bit more play as well, just because the meta has shifted to include what's that card?
Petrova?
Really, yes, that guy. So and I feel like this, yeah, I mean, Blizzard of Spears, it's purely a card you can only use when you're behind, essentially.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because you don't want to blow up your own board with this one.
Yeah, and it's just so, like, if I can see it being so powerful. I haven't used it as much as Steering Wave personally, but in the sense that they serve the same purpose, that card, Steering Wave, has just won me so many games. But I think Blizzard of Spears is better than that, so that's why I have it on the number 2 spot.
Yeah, I think like the extra, Blizzard of Spears being able to clear 4K is actually so relevant because not only does it hit whatever else Steering Wave is hitting, but like the extra stuff it hits is actually very relevant. You've got the mini bosses like Foul, I guess of like Forbos is relevant if you consider Forbos relevant, even though we don't play with it. There's powered up Wave Strikers because especially Merly, which is a 0.5. Survivors boosted by Smashhorn. It even hits Tajamal, so yeah, Blizzard of Spears is crazy.
Yeah, and especially when you play with Eureka Charger now, and all the charges, it actually comes out like on the turn that Steering Wave was going to come out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right, Jason, Jason, are we going to have the same pick again?
I guess we'll see. I think we might. Okay. Number 2 might be the same.
Okay.
My number 2 pick is Miraculous Meltdown. I think a lot of people would expect to see this in the number 1 slot, which I think is reasonable, but I gave it number 2. Going down to 0 shields and playing this alongside Pyro is this card's most famous application, and the trick has been serving control decks well for a long time. I don't think there's much I can really say, except that it is, in my view, the perfect example of a comeback card. It's super cheesy, and it works, and that's why it's so high on my list.
Yeah, I think one thing about this card is that we only really recently realized how consistent it actually is, because before we just thought it was a gimmick. It's like, why do you play like 2 of these and you can't even search for it? How does this even work?
Man, they play Crystal Memory, okay? They play the one Crystal Memory.
Play the one Crystal Memory.
So have you guys actually built a deck with this? Because I saw it and I was like, man, this card is so good, but I don't actually know how you would use it, so that's why I never even considered it.
Yeah, so we put it into our foul control deck list now. Because that deck actually has ways to search this, and also it loves playing one-offs. There's gonna be another one of that deck.
Yeah, the Foul control deck is kind of like a forcive, no nature, old school control deck. You just like abuse card advantage, kind of slow, but runs a lot of toolboxy cards. And then this has made it a lot better.
Yeah. All right, good thing I don't have that as my second pick. So my second pick is good old Coral, or not so good Coral.
Wow.
Ooh.
I don't know. What can you say about this card? It's very obnoxious. Essentially, when you play this card on the right target, instead of reading this effect, this essentially reads you gain an extra turn, or you skip your opponent's turn.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of times this is what makes control decks so much better, or like mid-range when you're leaning towards more mid-range or more control decks. It bridges that gap between the early game and then into the later turns. Gaining that one extra turn can lead you to playing out some of your board wipes or your big boss monsters. So I feel like Coral, just serves that role really well in starting your comeback.
I thought about it that way, but that makes sense now that you spell it out for me.
Yeah, I feel like partially the reason why I have it this high is I just absolutely hate this card. It just lose like instantly when you play it on a big creature or like a creature that doesn't have a common effect. You just lose.
Yeah. So good. So, all right, that's a cool pick.
All right, number one. Very excited. Kelvin, what is your number one comeback card?
Okay, so my number one comeback card is Soul Swap. And
yeah.
yeah, there's definitely recency bias with this pick, and it's exactly the scenario you mentioned with the Cryptic Totem Jigazzo. And when I was playing this card, I was just like, oh my, like, this card is just insane. Like I'm losing, I'm about to lose, and then I win. It's like, oh, okay, cool. But yeah, I just think this card has so many possibilities, and it does have its limitations in terms of a comeback. Sometimes you have to have a creature on the board, or you need to have like insane amounts of mana to facilitate it to utilize an actual comeback. But yeah, I mean the possibilities that it provides and the versatility, it can be used in so many decks and so many scenarios. I just think it's just a really cool card.
Yeah, I think Soul Swap is one of those cards that just breaks the game, right? Like it breaks the rules of the game.
Yeah.
Like, you shouldn't be able to like summon Baz for 3 mana.
Yeah. Because the thing that keeps Baz balanced is like when you summon Baz, that's your whole turn. But then when you can Baz and something else, it's like, excuse me, hello. That's a really great pick.
Yeah.
It's a really fun card, but definitely might be able to recency bias there. But
I think that's a pretty good number one pick. But my number one pick, we have got some Holy Jason, how could you do this? It's outrageous. It's unfair. How can Meltdown be the perfect example of a comeback card and not be number one? Let me explain. So with Meltdown, you either cheese your opponent with the Pyro trick or play it with a board and hope for the best. But unlike Meltdown, Holy All can actually mount a comeback at many different points in the game. If you have creatures and the opponent breaks early, you can steal their momentum. If both players are building boards, you can hard cast it to break the opponent's board and turn the game around. Then there's the classic scenario of Holy All being in the final shields, which buys you that extra turn you need. I feel like the card lends itself to comebacks in many different ways and at many different points in the game. So that's why I have it as my number one pick.
Yeah. I think
great pick, Jason. I also think it's a good card, worthy of top 5 even.
Yeah, I knew you guys, or one of you guys would have picked Holy War. I think like for when you're looking at these top 5 cards, essentially like any one of these, maybe not 4 or 5, but any one of these could be the number one. It's quite interchangeable.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, I think a lot of it is like really drawn from like how you've experienced the cards.
Yes.
And how what games. I mean, like it kind of shows.
That's why I've core up that high.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when I have Gauntlet staff meetings with Damien and Andrew's unavailable, Damien always has this as his last shield, and I'm like, come on, can you like not?
You just have to play
You
assuming
mix
that
it, yeah.
Holy Oars is last shield.
That's true. Yeah. That was my mistake.
Okay, well, you either have hashtag Team Holy Oar or you have hashtag Team Miraculous Meltdown.
I knew it.
Yeah, so I think we've already covered most of the key points of this card. It's the definition of a comeback. You think your opponent thinks they've got you on the ropes, and then you pull this out and you summon Pyro, and then haha, I win.
That sounds so obnoxious.
Yeah, I think the one cool thing about this card is that it makes games feel like you always have a chance of winning. Similar with Holy Oar, really, or most of these comeback cards, is that you always feel like there's always a chance with Miraculous Meltdown, because even if your opponent breaks all his shields, as long as he doesn't finish as you always have a chance to bring it back. And I think that's why I have Miraculous Meltdown at number 1.
Very good. Very cool. You could make a deck with just all of these cards. The comeback deck.
Oh, man.
What if you make a deck with a Miraculous Meltdown and Ghastly Drain? What?
What is Ghastly Drain?
Ghastly Drain is you can pick up any number of shields.
Oh, were you gonna make one with like Cosmic Darts or something?
Oh,
Yeah.
Something like this?
we tried. We tried. It's not happening.
Yeah, it's when I realized that your opponent picks, right? That's the
Yeah.
problem. It's like you rig your shields. Like, well, I'll just one pick that one.
All right.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the end of the video. Whose list did you agree with the most? Were we all way off? Let us know your top 5 comeback cards in the comments. But as usual, thanks for watching. Stay safe, and we'll see you guys next time.